Let's beef it.
Hunter, can you bring us up to date on what's going on with the discrimination of LGBTQ at Reef2Reef?
How much time do we have?
We can do whatever.
We've got about half an hour left, but I think people think that I'm driving the whole thing and that it's all my fault. In fact, no. We know they think that because people have posted that on Reef2Reef. And as I've said, and as you know, that's not what's going on. I am an ally who doesn't like the discrimination, so I will stand up for it because people need to stand up against it. And frankly, it's fucking load of bullshit. So, but I'm not in the trenches with it now. Other people are. So what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah. So I guess to take it from where it was to where it is and maybe fill in some of the blanks there of what you just kind of danced around. And so some people probably know that I was / technically still am a moderator on Reef2Reef, even though I haven't done anything there at all since this has started, nor do I have plans to, unless somehow the situation was to totally turn around and resolve, but I have no faith in that happening.
Can you tell us quickly what the situation is?
Well, in the sense of where it is at this moment, because it's unchanged from where it's been.
Or even from listeners, if someone's picking up and they don't even know what the hell we're talking about.
Okay, fine. So I'll give you the quick wrapper summary, and this is in the petition as well in terms of general timeline. But back in October last year, there was a trans male that had started a thread. And it got a little bit of attention, and with that, there was some new words added to the terms of service that prohibited discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity. Just real quick snap, change. That in itself struck me a bit wrong at that time. Well, of course it was wrong, but wrong in the sense of how quick I got into the terms of service, because prior to that, any change to that document, if you will, was always a discussion amongst the moderation team. And David, or Rev, as a lot of people know him, historically had been pretty good about, listening to his people and kind of getting their input and really kind of going with the consensus as to what the rules should say. And this was the first time that I could ever remember in about 7 years of moderating there that something was so quickly added to the terms of service and unilaterally. And that already was a bit of a curious red flag. So that was October. So let's fast forward then to December, because nothing really happened between. And come December, there was another thread that was started by someone else entirely, who is a member of the Rainbow Reefers today, and was at that time as well. And he simply started an LGBTQ plus thread, which was no different than many other threads that exist on there now, like the women reefing or the barbecuers or, you name it, just any general interest thread, woodworkers, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
The Mandalorian.
Yeah, there you go. And it was no different. It was just hey, I am, an LGBTQ individual. I'm in the hobby. This is the kind of tank I have, just, looking for others with that commonality. That was it. And the thread really stayed on track pretty well for a day or two. And then as the wrong attention got on it and people started to, jump in and say, just disparaging things towards that segment of the population. And then the thread got pulled. And then the rules got changed again. But at this point, we had more of a discussion in the back room, if you will. And it was, and me being the sole gay person in the moderation team, really raising the flag, going, you can't have words in the terms of service that are exclusionary. And at the same time say, everyone's welcome here, because that was the message that was being, brought out. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And so, but then it was made clear of, well, no, that's not what I meant with those terms. And it's okay, if that's not what you meant, that's fine, but fix it now. And so, how it got changed in the terms of service is just no discussion of I forget how it's worded now myself because it's been a while since I've looked at it. But the intent that I was told it would be at that time was a refrain of discussion on sexuality, and it's okay, fine. It's a reef forum that's touted as family friendly, and even if you look at other reef forums, if you get into discussions of that are sexual in nature, yeah, okay, this doesn't belong here, right? So no argument with that. It was never made clear that hey, we won't allow the terms of LGBTQ or anything associated with it. That was never made clear.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear too that the thread in December that started this, it was never a sexual thread.
Correct.
It was literally like the Mandalorian thread. It was like,
Correct.
Hey, I like the Mandalorian and I reef. Let's talk about what kind of tanks you have. And that's what it was. There wasn't any hooking up, although there is with straight people on, there's dating threads and crap. So I just wanted to put that in there that is not what was going on.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. Go ahead.
I traditionally don't do forums. So for that part, like I don't have a dog in that fight. I mean, 25 years of doing this, I've messed around on forums here and there, but it's like when you do this for a living, I come home, like I had to do something else. But it's just like, but that is crazy. I mean, it's the biggest is Reef2Reef. It's the biggest forum that's out there. And I mean, and I'm kind of saying this for people to tune in that might not have watched some of our older shows, and they're just like, I still don't understand what's going on, and so the ownership of Reef2Reef is a pretty devout, like, Christian man. I have no problem with that. I myself am not, but I mean, I have no problem with that. But the way his terms of service are, and all of a sudden he picks out this segment of the population that he just wanted to shut down. And, Richard and I talked about this in our older shows. It was never like, this isn't a vindictive thing, or it's not like, hey, shut Reef2Reef down, or, and we went hard in the paint with trying to share the petition. And I think it still sits at somewhere around 2,500, something like that, 2,000 something.
Yeah, a little over 2,500 now.
And it was trying to drum up enough eyes to say, hey, look what Reef2Reef's doing. Can we just stop doing that? It was, it's not to like, hurt them business wise or have people not look at it. It's just like, in all fairness, people just should know that certain people are being censored on that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good lead in right there with the mention of the petition. And so when all this happened at the time and went down, there was myself and really 4 other moderators along with me that were all very much opposed to what was happening and very firmly, responding to the others about how we were opposed to it and why and everything else. And yet things steamrolled on. And so, and I'll leave names out of it because it doesn't really matter, but someone else, and it's not Rich for that matter, but someone else told me, hey, why don't you consider starting a change.org petition and just to let people know not only what's happened, but just make it clear what you guys would like. And it's simply to be treated fairly, right? That's really it. And so put that out there and just see how it gets picked up. And if nothing changes, then at least it's been made clear to everybody that there's no way that things are going to be fair, and you're just kind of exposing it for what it is. And so that's what I did. And so just to make that super clear too, I'm the one that started the petition. Yeah, I had support of others behind with me. And as things picked up and progressed along the way, I had even more support and various sources and places. And that was really great, to kind of start that momentum and have other people jump out behind you and even in front of you from time to time was nice. And it kind of, validated at least how I was thinking and feeling about it. Because there's that part of you too that goes, okay, am I just quote unquote the angry gay man in all of this? And, I'm overreacting. But I didn't really feel that way. Anyhow. So yeah, the petition's been out there for a while. There was an update to the petition with a timeline of stuff. I completely vow to that timeline because I'm the one who put it together.
Well, and we'll put a link in the description to it if some more people are just now finding out about that, want to sign it. I mean, again, what I've wrestled with in my head is like, what does it do? But, it draws attention to, the situation. Is it going to get anyone to change? I mean, that's be pretty hopeful. Well, if enough people.
I think it has made really good discussion around the topic. And I think people, and I've seen on other forums where this has been discussed, and the discussion was allowed to go on reasonably. People who started with, what's with all these gays, turned into, oh, no, this is stupid. Everyone's fine. So I've seen people flip on it already from just having the discussion about the issue. So
yeah. I mean, because a lot of people too, when there started to be some talk of it, started to go, well, we don't really know what happened. We don't really know what was said and how threads were going, and people assume that it was all about, hey, I'm single. Who else is free to date? And that was never happening. That was absolutely not happening. The only bad things that came out were the people that were, flamingly against this whole sort of thing and came out with their pitchforks, right? And went, keep the gays out of here kind of thing. And so instead of dealing with that part, which is what should have been dealt with, then this broad brush got put out there of, nope, we're just not going to have this at all.
Yeah. The bullies got supported. The bullies came in, pissed on everything, and didn't pay any price for being assholes.
Right. And there was even one instance where I forget what kind of thread it was in, but someone, and so it's also worth mentioning that anytime this gets brought up on the forum since the fact, it's quickly extinguished. And there's no means, no way to talk about this whatsoever on the forum today without it, quickly vanishing. And so there was one thread where somebody had brought it up and in a very direct way. And someone replied to them of shut up, gay guy. And that got reported. And which, right. By definition, many other places is hate speech by its definition. And, I had to kind of make a little stink on that. Like, wait a minute, are we just going to ignore hate speech and just not deal with that specifically too? Because hold on. And it did get dealt with, but had me or someone else not made that point, I don't know if anything would have happened.
Like it was only going to be dealt with if you piped up, when it's just like
right,
man. I mean, I'm glad I don't do forums. I mean, that watching that in itself for me would have completely turned me off to any discussions on that thing.
I want to say at the same time, one of those forum members mentioned something about Jewing you down.
Yeah.
There was a post where he said, Jew you down. And it was like, you should be in trouble for saying that. Yep. But instead, it looks like the moderators just changed it and went on with their lives.
And that's the hard part about growing up, is you realize that the whole fucking world doesn't have to center around yourself, and that there's other people in the world. And, my grandfather used to say, my late grandfather used to say the Jewing down. And it was something I said, I think, when I was a teenager. But like I said, grow the fuck up. And one day I realized that saying stuff like that. Also, too, one of my favorite relatives, my gay uncle, came to live with us when I was in my teens. And, it was like, this was the 90s. I had, no problem with gay people, but me and our friends, we would say like, shut up, faggot, but that ended so quickly when he moved in with us. And it was, like I said, just growing up, you realize you're saying some words. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, but it means something to someone else. And then, when people, you're not going to get me to not say that word. It's just like, I mean, you're intentionally hurting people for no goddamn reason, just so you can use a word.
Yeah, there's 20 million other words you could use. Why are you going to die on the hill for this one stupid word?
Well, and it's amazing because the guy said, shut up, gay guy. For all you know, you look and he's like a 52-year-old dude. It's like, I know we all grow up at different rates, but at some point it's like, the fuck's your problem? And if you come on a public forum and say, be quiet, gay dude, I want you to be gone.
Yeah. So all this action took place like in January and February. and then it's calmed down for a little bit, where the heat's come off of it like it's going to.
Right.
But what's I saw some stuff that happened recently. What's going on now?
Yeah, so that kind of brings up the Rainbow Reefers then, which has been a thing for a few years now in terms of an official group, and it was something that someone else really founded, but I've kind of been alongside for all of that too, because it's been a MACNA thing for several years now, and there's a whole story with its origin, but fine. It just real quick, it started kind of as a joke with back in Dallas actually in 2012, of someone else who was a gay male and had, joking as we were all kind of met up, kind of made a whole joke of like, hey, we should make a group and call it the Rainbow Reefers. And so kind of got thrown around as a joke for quite a few years until it actually was like, why don't we actually make it a thing?
It's fantastic.
And so anyhow, so someone else kind of headed that up and founded it more than I put in any effort for, but I was along for the ride.
We'll put a link to that in the description too. I mean, I think we talk about it all the time, but we'll put a link to Rainbow Reefers in the description too.
And so in the past few months, I'd say we've gotten a bit more organized, if you will, and pulled in some other people that had really left Reef2Reef behind on account of all this, and started to pull in some people who were willing to help us out and contact some sponsors and just try to get the awareness out there in a broader sense. And that's been good in the general sense of kind of herding cats a little bit, and getting some help where we need it, because this is more than myself can handle. I'm doing this in the spare time I have, right, which is already limited, and the same thing for most everybody else here too. And so we did send out a couple emails now. One email to all those sponsors that we really hadn't heard from, and just kind of let them know, hey, this is still happening. We would really like it if you not only signed the petition, but considered putting a statement out there against this sort of thing, which some companies did, and not to call them out too directly, but I think most everyone's aware of it, and things are out there. But MASNA had put out an inclusion and diversity statement. Those are two separate words. In the scheme of all of this, and Coral View put out something as well.
Yep.
And so anyhow, it was kind of point to those as examples of hey, it'd be great if you did this, and it'd be really great if you considered pulling your sponsorship from Reef2Reef, even if you're very against this. And so the first email didn't get a whole lot of response. It got a few, some responses you'd expect. One that was even more concerning than anything was, oh, we thought this had gotten resolved. We didn't realize this was still going on. This is still a thing. It's like, oh,
swept under the carpet. Swept under the carpet.
Yep. No one talks about it. It goes away, right? Just like magic. It's kind of sad, but true. And so that, more than anything, was a good example of, okay, we got to keep the conversation going.
I mean, this isn't a political show, but it just boggles my mind, because people think that, like, Black people or women or gay, just any marginalized segment is going to be swept under the carpet. And it's just like, no one's getting swept under the carpet. They're not going away. It's just your beliefs that are so, pigeonholed that you can't realize that it's not just all about you. And no one's coming after you with a pitchfork, but it's just like, for Christ's sake, this is the United States of America. Just, I don't know. Where are we at?
And you get, when you do get responses, you get all kinds of different responses too. And some of them are very clear, even when they don't say a whole lot, when they use words like, sexual preference or lifestyle choices. And you go, okay, it's very clear where you really stand on this. So thanks for making that clear without saying anything.
Yeah, because when I was born, I was a little baby. I had to make a lifestyle choice at that time. And I decided who I was going to put my penis inside.
Yeah, right. That's one that, still I hear of, well, it's a choice, right? Or it's a preference. And it's like the easiest way to flip that on people, and maybe flip that sounds more pointed than it should, but it's a simple question of, when did you choose to be straight? That's the one that just makes people pause when they have that old school thinking that is completely unfounded.
There's just so much better stuff to talk about than this bullshit, like RASes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right. Like, I don't want to be talking about this, right? It's a simple fact that people don't even know it's happening still.
And it's important. It's important to talk about because it's bullshit affecting members of our extended reef keeping community that shouldn't be affected this way. It's right. Just fucking stupid. And I know people are like, well, we want to talk about RASes. It's like, we want to talk about RASes too. But this is bedrock, the future of the community. And if nobody talks about it, yeah, and if nobody talks about it, we're all lessened. And I'd like us to all be better.
The other angle to think about too, and especially as things maybe don't get better in the bigger scheme of the hobby, right? I mean, we have all kinds of pressures happening right now around the globe. And various aspects of the hobby, and what's the collection future going to hold? And there's lots of question marks on things today, and so it's more important than ever that people can unite in our what should be aligned fight against all of that, right? And so why are we dividing ourselves within and excluding segments of the community because of someone's ideals? Right? Like,
I only judge you how you treat me. I don't give a shit what color you are or who you're going to bed with. I could give two shits less. That's none of my business.
If only everyone felt the same. There was a second email sent out from the Rainbow Reefers account as well that wasn't as well vetted. It was some of the volunteers amongst themselves that was kind of, I guess it's more fair to say that the Rainbow Reefers started to get a bit more ran by committee, and not necessarily by the three of us that had, been there from the beginning. And so a second email went out without any of the three of us really looking at it, and it didn't get the greatest response from some sponsors. They started to see it as a threat. And as, we went back and looked at it, it's like, oh yeah, the tone, I totally can see how the tone can be read that way. And so I do want to, put that out there too, that there's been a few hiccups, and we'll certainly put some statements out there to help address that, and it's just growing pains. I'm not that worried about it, but we certainly are not looking to threaten companies. We're not, and part of it too is some of the response we got back from many companies was the sentiment of, we don't like what's happening at Reef2Reef, and we don't stand for it. However, it's the only niche we have for our business. There's no other big community out there. If we don't advertise and do our sales in Reef2Reef, we will cease to exist as a business. And so I totally get that. It's not really fair to put these small businesses at the decision of, do we keep advertising and sell on Reef2Reef, or do we stand against it and kill off our business? We can't ask them to be a martyr in that regard.
That's financial.
Yeah. There's other things they can do. I mean, this is where it gets sticky and weird, right? Because as much as we'd love everybody to go, fuck it, I'm out, fuck Reef2Reef, right? Not everybody can do that, and we understand that. There's a lot of other things people can do. If they were in that position, they could put a diversity statement up. They could have sales for LGBTQ people. There's all kinds of stuff they could do to show that they understand the issue and want to support everybody while they're still advertising on Reef2Reef. If I owned a business and I really wanted to be a dick, an ass. That's such a hard one to change.
For being a vagina.
Nope, not everyone has a vagina. And vagina comes with its own kind of set of weird. Anyway, I would have my link from Reef2Reef go to a landing page on my site that talked about LGBTQ issues. So anybody who came from Reef to Reef would see that immediately, and then also be able to see what we offered for sale. So there's lots of things that can be done besides just saying suck it.
This is La La Land, but I think the best outcome would be if David would just not care, as long as no one's hurting anybody, and not care, stuff like that that's being said. Like you said, people talk about woodworking, the Mandalorian, barbecue, all that. What does it matter?
So there's certainly a bigger issue there, and I don't quite know what it is myself. I can speculate, and I'm more than happy to do that, but I just want to be clear that it's total speculation.
Well, let's speculate.
It's clearly something to do with the terms. There was an instance this last week, or no, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's got thrown up on one of the other forums, and I know Rich saw it there, and I'm sure some others did as well, of somebody that had gay in the title of their thread, and that was not allowed. But within the body of their thread, it was okay. And so that was confusing in its own right. And this kind of even goes back to a conversation that I had on the phone with David back towards the end of December, when all this was happening, and I was, very angry and known to be very angry about all of it then. And on the phone, he says to me, because I was making all the points you've already made about why is this a big deal, and he was synonymous in the fact of we will not have a thread that's a discussion of sexuality, and it's like, well, that's not what it is, and so it turned into, well, we'll just have to disagree on that. And I'd even made the point of if an LGBTQ plus thread is a discussion of sexuality, then the woman in reefing is a discussion of their private parts, right? Like, no, this is not an analogy. It doesn't hold water. But the key thing he said to me on the phone is, well, what if you called it something else? And it was like, well, wait a minute. What is with the terms, right? What is with the words? And so the fact that it's not allowed in a thread title, my speculation is it's all a matter of what does or does not get picked up on Google.
Yeah.
And so I really think that he just does not want those words indexed on Google.
Can you imagine a word where we have to be subgroups of little clubs of a common interest because of our different genitalia, the color of our skin, and whatever orientations that we had no control over? Can you fucking imagine?
Or even
that's what world we live in.
It's just ridiculous.
And so part of my reason I think that is he's always had a push, and this makes perfectly logical sense, but there's always been a push of, I don't want the word, porn to show up in thread titles for sales, choral porn and that sort of thing. That was always kind of a bit of a tightrope, because, Google will pick those words up, and he didn't want the site to get, labeled as a porn site, right? And okay, fine, that makes sense. I understand that. But so it starts to make me think, what is it with gay words, if you will, that's kind of similar there. And I don't quite know all the reasons. One of the moderators that was behind me in all of this too was adamant that, and it's his speculation, but adamant this all comes back to his church, that he doesn't want to have to answer to his parishioners about why this sort of thing is okay on his forum that they all know he's a part of, and that he pulls his income from. Ben, you touched on it earlier, but yes, he is a pastor at a Pentecostal church, for that matter.
I didn't Pentecostal.
Pentecostal doesn't have the best reputation with LGBTQ people. His parent church is the Church of God, which is tied to Cleveland, Tennessee, I believe, because I think there's a few different Church of Gods. But that one you can look up and find information on, and they are known to be anti-LGBTQ. Does that extend to his church as well? I don't honestly know.
They're connected.
It's connected, right? It's hard to think that it would be completely in contrast to it.
Again, I might be speaking out of place, but I just always felt that if there is a God and he has a rule that's like that, maybe let God deal with that at the end. I don't understand why we're dividing each other up and making life difficult for each other.
Right.
it all comes down to, again, he can do whatever the hell he wants on his website.
Who,
right?
God?
Yes, God and David. Those are the only two people. They can do whatever they want on their website, but we can also call out the bullshit that we see him doing, right? And if he's going to say we're the most welcoming, inclusive community of reef keepers in the world, and then he's not, we are totally able to point that out and go, look, man, if you want to have your prayer threads and you're going to be, a Jesus fish form, that's fine with me. It's kind of fine with me. It is fine with me. But if you're going to then tell me that I have to act the same way you do, that's not cool, and I won't be part of your community, and that's fine. But if you're going to say that you're inclusive and that you want all reefers to have a home on your community, and then you shit on a bunch of reefers, you're an asshole, and you should stop being an asshole.
Being inclusive in itself means that you don't get to put asterisks below it.
Right.
I mean, as long as no one's hurting anybody or kids or animals or whatever, who cares?
I am not a religious person. I really only have reactions to religious stuff when they're trying to make me act like them. I had a problem with David 2 years ago, I guess now, or a year. Yeah, whatever. Where I had problems from the beginning. I won't call him Rev. I had a problem with a prayer thread. I absolutely don't feel welcome on his forum. I don't like going to to seeing all the SIGs with Bible verses and shit in them. It doesn't make me feel welcome, right? But I came to terms with the idea, so I started to ask the atheist thread, which got disappeared in the same way the LGBTQ thread got. But even after that got disappeared, even after I talked with David about it, even after he promised to think about it and get back to me, even after he never did, I kind of went, well, it is a big reef form. And, that's where a lot of the action is. So, okay, I'll participate there. Even to the point of becoming one of the reef squad. They asked me to be a reef squad person. I was like, okay, and then they did this bullshit. And so it's, I lost my train of thought while I was talking about all that stuff, but I'm okay with one giant reef form. In fact, I could even make an argument for one giant reef form. We're fractured enough as it is, but the way David is doing it is not the way to do it, because we're not all one big group there. We are there's discrimination. There's discrimination against atheists, whatever, I can take it. Atheists don't really give a shit, right? They kind of do, because it's stupid and it leads to real shit that is bothersome, right? The reason atheists talk up is because we usually have thick skin and could go whatever and kind of fight a little bit. But people who are actually marginalized in the world have a harder time doing that. And if you let one go, it's more likely the other one's going to happen as well.
But so that's the other part that bugs me is I'm a straight white male, and then we live in this world where it just seems like everything is set up for straight white males, and then some marginalized segment pipes up and says something, and everyone's like, "Oh, you won't shut up! You're always bringing up being gay, blah blah blah." And it's like, I'm fucking drowning in a world of white straight males, and I say something, and everyone has a shit fit and think I have a secret agenda and think this, and it's fucking crazy. And I don't even know why I'm a straight white male that doesn't give two fucks about it. I don't understand why anyone gives a fuck about it.
Look, I've become active on Humble Fish, which we should put a quote link to. And if it's not clear from the title, Humble Fish has got a religious origin. And that's totally fine with me. It's a decent community. It's a good community of people. It's growing. It's nice. We have religious discussions, and sometimes they get tense because I'm not going to hold back just because I don't want to offend somebody. Where you started the discussion, I'm going to talk. But if I feel like you're getting offended, I'm going to back off, because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is talk about stuff. And it's cool that we have these common ground of reef keeping and fishes and wanting things not to die. That allows us to talk about these different perspectives that matter more in the world. So it's not like we're anti-religion. It's only anti-religion when you shove it in my face and try to make me act like you. There's plenty of religious talk on Humblefish. You know what I do? I scroll by it in the same way as I scroll by barbecue threads. It's not for me.
Not your thing.
So, but why should I shit on other people for having their thing? I think it's great people have their thing.
The difference of all the people we're talking about, the difference that have to, you scroll and you see something, you're like, hey, quiet, gay person. Like, just keep fucking scrolling. It's not your thing. Go away.
Go away. Yeah. So what's the next steps, Hunter?
Well, the next thing that I am sure we will do, it's a matter of exactly how, what's the right way, and we're still sorting through all that. But some more media exposure in a bigger context. It's still the problem we face is people saying, oh, I didn't know anything about this. There's still a whole lot of users in Reef2Reef that have no idea that any of this has ever occurred, because it all got covered up before they could even see it. And because we can't talk about it on Reef2Reef, how do you make people in Reef2Reef aware that this has happened and not do it on Reef2Reef? So outside of going to media that people may see in the hobby, I don't know what to do there. But that's really the next step is to get some broader exposure in that regard.
Great. Well, we want to help any way we can. So you can always tap us. You're welcome to be back on the show when you got something about this to talk about, or just a reef thing to talk about. We like talking to you.
Sure.
No, for sure. I mean, we got that. We touched on that. I would, let's not wait too long. We'll have Hunter back on and we can not say a goddamn thing about that and just talk about